the interesting story about Reliance Industries, if we focus on Reliance Retail, is the massive acquisition spree this vertical has been on over the last 1 year since the pandemic. It has been gobbling up brands, tying up partnerships at breakneck speed. So the 7-Eleven chain of stores was opened after the Future Group backed out and couldn't go through with it. Whole clutch of fashion designers and high-end fashion labels have been taken over, or at least majority stakes in them have been taken over. Their partnerships with brands like Burberry, Hamleys, Marks & Spencer, Paul Smith, Tiffany, more so. There is now reports of a cosmetics section being opened as well, perhaps a tie-up with Gap. And yes, the Reliance retail stores also expanding frenetically. This is without the Future Group on board. That deal, of course, still hanging fire between all the courts in India and in Singapore. So what really is the strategy here that Reliance Retail is adopting, and how does it impact the retail landscape of India? Because remember, on one hand, you have a Reliance Retail, then you have the Tatas, which want to come out with their super app. You have Amazon in the fray, and you have Walmart. So it's a very interesting retail landscape which is emerging as well. Harminder Sahni, founder and MD, Wazir Advisors, joining us on the show. Mrigank, Gutgutia, associate partner at Redseer, also on the show today. Thank you so much to both of you. Harminder, I want to start by getting your views. I mean, we've been seeing the kind of partnerships that Reliance Retail has been tying up recently. Do you see a pattern? Do you see a larger plan?
Yeah, absolutely, Tamanna. If you look at it sometime back in 2005, when Reliance got into the retail business, I would say the theory or the hypothesis was that unorganized retail is going to get organized, or let's say traditional retail is going to become modern retail. And that's the path which they took, and in 15 years, they have reached a level. They are the largest retailer and turnover anywhere between 150,000 to 200,000 crores. But I think in the last 5 years, while we are seeing the real action right now, COVID also had been a dampener in between. But the last, I would say, 10 years has been going from offline to online. That's one trend on e-commerce is going on. But leaving the channel parts aside, whether it's offline or online, the trend in last 5 years clearly there that Indians are becoming more and more aspirational. And now the move from unbranded to branded is going to be far more significant than what the unorganized to organized retail has been. That will continue to happen because still there is a lot of runway there. But this next trend of consumer moving from unbranded to branded, and within the branded, there will be a huge amount of segmentation which will come through. And the third trend which started happening in India in the recent time has been that otherwise most of the companies, they have been looking at international brands, how to partner with them and bring them. And Reliance also has brought many, Tata's have brought many, Birla Group has brought many, and so many others have brought in. But the last 2-3 years, the trend has become on that the Indian brands, because of this one D2C side of action, which we are seeing that the brand entry barrier for the brands has become very, very low. But also there are lots of legacy brands which have been around there, right? They have become very, very attractive because they are gaining market share. They are increasing. So more and more consumers are coming in to buy these brands, Indian brands. And they want to buy from them. The Indian ethos, Indian aesthetics, Indian taste, Indian packaging, Indian story. That's all these brands have been pushing. So I think put all of this put together, I think the Reliances following the trend. And once they latch onto the trend, they always move very aggressively. That we all know, and few other groups as well. So that's what we are seeing happening right now. And many of these deals are, I would say, the
Yeah,
actions which you see
you
in
know,
the larger trend and the strategy which these people are following. And you'll see much more, I'm sure.
oh, okay, so interesting strategy of moving from unbranded to branded, but they seem to be catering to all segments of the market. Mrigank, think about it. You are offering a discounted stuff. You're going mass with the Jio Mart kind of formats. Then you're also going high end. They've opened a high end gourmet store recently as a test case. You're looking at big brands, smaller brands, retail chain, online, 7-Eleven. Is there a method to this madness?
So, Tamanna, I think what Reliance is trying to do fundamentally is to, as you said, I think trying to say cater to a very wide spectrum of customer needs. right? I think, and I would probably put it on a, let's say, a two-part axis, right? On one axis, you have the price spectrum, right, catering from the discounted side of things to the more premium luxury side of things. On the other hand, I would talk about the convenience to experiential categories. On one hand, they would like to tackle for the convenience categories, and on the other hand, also win out in the experiential shopping cases. So the idea is to have the widest possible, say, consumer wallet share, and obviously that allows them to have a maximum growth in their total retail sales, right? So I would put their strategy into potentially expanding this addressable market, cater to the maximum possible needs. And I think I would like to talk about the channel angle. That the channel angle perhaps is very critical for them. That, for example, they already have a wide range of, let's say, international brands on the luxury side, but what we have seen post COVID is that the digital penetration has really spiked. Customers are keen to shop for all types of brands online. So let's say when they acquire stakes in the premier Indian ethnic brands like the Manish Malhotras and Ritu Kumars of the world, they have a chance to integrate it very well with their fast growing Jio platform, which has been recently doing very well on the online fashion side of things, and then make such kind of a brand potentially much more accessible to a larger audience pan India versus what would be accessible from a small set of retail, physical retail outlets. So the idea is to make the channel that much more accessible, which in turn increases the millions of customers who are able to access that kind of a brand. So that's one lever of the overall strategy, right? At the second end, there is some categories like pharmacy, where it's a fundamentally offline category, but let's say they have acquired someone like a NetMeds or perhaps even an Urban Ladder, right? So the idea there would be to sort of bring these online acquired brands to the physical channels, latch them into their very vast network of Reliance Smart or other formats, and then again access a much wider customer, say, network. So that's the second lever: how to make online categories, or say typically offline categories, how to link that to the online brands they have acquired. And the third lever would be to create entirely new, say, channels altogether, which would be the, say, or entirely new formats like the convenience store 7-Eleven acquisition that they have done, which again allows them to access a third new layer of the customer wallet, and then again overall increase their overall addressable market, increase their overall growth story. So as they set about increasing, or say, solving for all customer needs on the retail side, I think we're seeing a culmination of all that goal in these three-part strategy that I talked about.
Tell us a little bit more about how the retail play is working out. You talked about Jio. So, of course, the brick and mortar presence has always been strong, is getting stronger. The retail play perceptionally has relatively been weaker for Reliance Retail. Is that also ramping up now?
Right. So I
The
think
online play?
correct. Yeah. So the online play has been, say, picking up significantly since, say, the last 1.5 years. And we see that post COVID, of course, the entire macro of the digital economy has picked up a lot. I think the customer addition has accelerated, customer comfort with online shopping has accelerated. And for Reliance, we see that playing out across their categories. So I'll take the example of Jio. I think a couple of years ago, I think it was still one of the smaller players, but through a combination of targeted brand partnerships, growth in the overall serviceable pin codes, and just providing a better seamless customer experience, obviously advertising, I think they have managed to make a fair bit of inroads in the last 1.5 years. And now they could be a very clear number two in the market, just behind the Flipkart Myntra combination, with probably a very fast growth rate, better than the industry. So that fashion play has worked out very well. That fashion digital pipeline has been created very effectively, and now they can put in more brands there and drive growth. That's one category. I think on the grocery side with JioMart, I think while the start was probably, in a limited set of cities, as of today, per our numbers, what we see is that JioMart is clearly giving a very, say, significant competition to all the grofers and some of the other players in the ecosystem. And while, of course, we cannot say they're the number one player, but the growth trajectory has been very, very aggressive. And let's say if they're able to connect the JioMart strategy to some of their physical stores around the more to the physical stores like the 7-Eleven and so on, then it add another dimension to the online grocery hyperlocal deliveries, which will further push the category. So on both these categories, I think the online strategy has proven very effective in the last 1.5 years. And I think we are, like, at least from our data we see, we expect them to continue growing at a pretty much above industry growth rates in the near future.
Okay. Harminder, in this entire picture, Where does the Future Group acquisition fit in, which is hanging fire right now? Because Reliance Retail has now become a juggernaut which is trundling on, and this little bit, we don't know what the outcome will be and when it will actually fructify. Does it make a huge difference right now to the larger Reliance Retail picture with what happens to Future?
It will always make a difference because Future Group, even though it may not be as large as market share as used to be, because Reliance has surged forward and so have a few others like DMart, but still it's a very significant part of the overall retail space, organized retail space. And more than that, the scale, if you ask me, stores like Big Bazaar, millions of Indian customers, they had their first experience of organized retail through Big Bazaar. I think the brand is way too bigger than the business which it represents today. So I think it's a very significant brand to have in anybody's portfolio. And Reliance having it definitely means that somebody else doesn't have it. So it has double advantage of having it rather than just saying that it will add. They're not buying revenue because from revenue point of view, Reliance can add this much revenue maybe in a year or two through their numbers at the growth where they are. It less to do with that. Second is less competition, and secondly the brand names which will come with it. I think that's a very very significant value which they are getting. And the way the deal has been structured and it has been done, I think it's a fantastic deal. So I definitely would say that Reliance should get it and try everything to get it. It is significant impact on their business overall.
Yeah, I'm sure that fight is very much on, and I mean we've seen the latest a little bit of a setback to Future with what the Singapore International Arbitration Court has said recently, but that fight is definitely on. But we're talking about the larger retail landscape in India and Reliance Retail's play in it. Harminder, I want you to paint us the picture of what has been going on, because while Reliance Retail has been tying up and gobbling up smaller brands, adding on new partners, so have others. So have the Tatas. So has Aditya Birla fashion retail as well in certain segments. The Walmarts are always there, and so are the Amazons. So how do you see this entire landscape evolving?
I think Indian market is one of the fastest growing market as far as the consumer market goes in the world. And at the scale where we are, the fastest means a lot more. Secondly, like I earlier also said, that the shift, even if the Indian market was not growing, the shift towards organized retail, shift towards branded itself, and shift towards online, all these three trends, they add to very, very large numbers. On top of it, it's a fastest growing market. So when you put all these pieces together, there's no way any one or two players can really service this market. So there will be many more. In fact, I always have been, Tamanna, in your show also many times, the Indian market consolidated way too soon. But that's how Indian market has been, and it consolidated. But now these 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 players, even at that scale, I would say there's enough runway, enough there to be done. So it's not a market share game, so to say. Market shares will evolve. That's a math which happens post facto, that who has how much market share. What all companies are doing to move this market more towards organized retail, more towards online, more towards branded. More players joining in, that change will be faster. That means the addressable market in which these people will be fighting for share is also growing as the number of players grow. So it's a very interesting and a complex scenario which we are in. And I think the kind of energy all these bringing companies and the capital and the activity which all these companies are bringing in, I think it's a delightful situation. You see from economy point of view, you see from investment point of view, you see from a consumer point of view. Because we are doing what we should have done maybe over the last 70 years, but now things are all happening at very, very high speed. We are trying to catch up with the much more developed markets in terms of all these aspects of online, organized and branded play. So I don't see any issue with that. When Tata's acquired Big Basket, honestly speaking, if you ask me, that is one of the biggest turning points, I would say, in Tata's history, right? They acquired a domestic business, domestic brand, online business, loss-making business, right? And they accepted that they can't create it, they will rather buy it. And so what Walmart did, coming in and buying Flipkart, Tata's did that with Big Basket. I think that was a big move, and that clearly shows the maturity of Indian conglomerates or Indian businesses, and each one of them is in a way directly or indirectly pushing each other. So it's a fantastic play which we are seeing here, and all of these will thrive for many years to come. And I hope people like DMart, who are highly focused players on one side of it, right? Very limited expansion as far as the geographically looks at it. They must be one of the smallest players in terms of number of stores, in terms of number of states they cover or cities they cover, but they are so large and so profitable and obviously valued by the market. On the other side, you have Reliance, right? Where having this kind of a scale where they can just grow 10% and create business as big as future retail in next 2 3 years, and but they're still wanting to acquire that. And then you have Tatas who have TCS, who have Tata Consumer, who have so many other things, but still accept the fact that Big Basket has moved forward, leapfrogged in that online grocery market. It will be better to pay $1 billion and take them into fold. So I would say everything. I think all trends, all potential was there, and nothing happens organically. All these companies are doing it. That's very good for everyone, all stakeholders, including consumers.
Yeah. Last word from you, Mrigank, on the big picture, the big landscape which is developing. Is it moving towards more organized, more branded, more big players? And then what happens to the many mom and pop shops, the informal retail landscape, which in India still has the lion's share, doesn't it?
Right, Taman, I think the informal retail, the unorganized retail, as we call it, I think to some extent, of course, as our data shows, it has been, say, the share of that has been slowly sort of, trickling down, at least in if you look at the non-grocery categories. And but in the grocery categories, at the same time, we see that they were very resilient during the COVID time, and we continue to believe that going forward as well, they cannot easily be replaced by whether it is online, organized, or whatever, right? So while the share of organized and online will grow across the categories, we believe the unorganized retail will be fairly resilient in the grocery side for sure. And even in the non-grocery categories, I think what we are seeing on the ground is that many of these unorganized retailers are not willing to back down without a fight, so to say. And they are readily accepting the digitization solutions that many companies are coming up with, and they are keen to digitize their back end, their front end, and their inventory management, their accounting. And in words of some of these unorganized retailers, they would like to compete on an even ground with the online guys, and they are not going to just sort of shut shop and go away. So to that extent, we see that while there will be a gradual shift towards the online and organized, we see a very large chunk of these unorganized retailers, they are going to get digitized, and the consumer experience difference currently as it stands between the organized and unorganized channel, that is also going to say get compressed over a period of time, and consumers can potentially expect a similar experience across these channels, and which is good for the ecosystem. And the unorganized retailers will continue to maintain a reasonably healthy share, even though it may not be as high as today. But the delta will come down.
Yeah. Exciting times for the Indian retail landscape and of course Reliance Retail on its path of tying up more and more brands. Thank you so much Harminder and Mrigank for joining us on this discussion today.